This is part 78 of ASP.NET MVC tutorial. In this video, we'll discuss different types of action result objects that can be returned by an action method. Notice that here we have the signature of a typical action method within a controller. Notice that the return type of an action method here is action result. So anytime we add an action method to a controller, by default the return type is going to be action result. This action result is actually an abstract class. Look at that, it's an abstract class. And then there are several subtypes that derive from this action result class. Okay, and you can see the complete list here. Look at that, there's something called view result, partial view result, JSON result. So all of these are derived types of action result. Now to arrive at this list, I have used a tool called ILSpy. This tool is extremely useful in case if you want to decompile assemblies and then inspect the source code. If you want to download the tool, that's available at this link. So once you are at that website, click on this button, download binaries, which should download all the required assemblies in a zip format, expand them to a folder, and then within that folder you should see an executable called ilspy.exe. Double click that and the tool should run. And now we want to inspect this action result class. Now this class is present in an assembly called system.web.mvc. Okay, so we need to load this assembly into this tool, and system.web.mvc is present in GAC, global assembly cache, so we need to open it from there. So click on file, select open from GAC, and then type the name of the assembly, system.web.mvc. There are three versions of this assembly. Let's pick up the latest version, which is 4.0. Click open. That should load the assembly into the tool. And then notice that this action result class is actually present in this namespace, system.web.mvc. So let's go ahead and expand that namespace. And within that we should see this class action result. And then once I expand this derived types, look at that, I get the list of all derived types. Okay, so I can see JSON result, I can say view result, partial view result. And then look at this, once I double click that class, it's actually decompiling and I can look at the source code. Okay, and once I expand this view result class, look at that, I can expand base types, and we know the base type, one of the base types is action result. Okay, so we are back at this. So basically very handy tool in case if you want to find out the decompiled source code, you can use this tool. Not only that, if you want to find the list of all derived types for a given base class, extremely useful tool. Okay, now we know that there are several subtypes that are deriving from this action result class. So the obvious next question that comes to our mind is, why do we have so many subtypes? That's because depending on our project requirement, our action method may return different objects. For example, we may return a view. Okay, so here if you look at our controller action method, the return type here is action result, and then here we are invoking this view function. And if you look at the IntelliSense here, look at the IntelliSense, the return type of this view function is view result object. Okay, now look at what is the return type that we have specified, action result, and we are actually returning a view result object. That's a different object. But then since these two classes, that is action result and view result class, are related by inheritance, so we can return the view result object as the inherited type. Okay, so basically we may return a view, or we may return a redirect result. For example, we may redirect the users to a different action within a different controller. If that's the case, then we have to return a redirect result object. Okay, so for example, when we use this function redirect to action, that's what we use, and then we specify the name of the action, and look at what it is returning back. Look at the IntelliSense, redirect to root result object. Okay, so basically that's another class which derives from our base type, which is action result. Okay, so there could be several things that we return from an action method depending on our project requirement, and that's the reason why we have so many subtypes. And the obvious next question that comes to our mind is, what should be the return type of an action method? Should it be the base type, or should it be the specific return type? For example, I can return JSON data as well. Okay, so if we are returning data in JSON format, then I can leave the return type as the base type, or I can actually change that to JSON result type, the specific type that this helper method is returning. So should we use the base type, or should we use the specific derived type? Okay, now in general, it's a good practice to return specific subtypes. Now, if you know that this index action is always going to return a view, then rather than specifying the return type as action result, okay, so if I know this one is always going to return maybe a view, okay, so obviously view function will return a view result object. Okay, so if that's the case, instead of leaving the return type as action result, use view result object. Okay, so return the specific type. But there may be cases where, depending on conditions, you may change the type of the object that you return. For example, if you have a condition and if that condition is true, then you want to return a view, that is a view result object. If that condition is false, then maybe we want to return a JSON result object. In that case, we cannot have two return types for our action method, so that's when you can use the base type. Okay, but in all other cases, I would say, if I know for sure we'll be returning a specific type only from the action method, then it's better to specify that specific type as the return type for our action method. And here is the list of all the subtypes, the type of objects, and then the helper methods that are used to return that type of object. So for example, if we want to return a view result object, look at that, if I want to return a view result object, we use the view helper method. Similarly, if I want to return a partial view result object, then we use partial view helper function. Okay, if I want to return a piece of JavaScript code that can be executed on the client, then we basically the object type is JavaScript result, and we use this JavaScript helper function within the controller. Okay, so this is the list which can be useful to you. That's it for today. Thank you for listening. Have a great day.